Hello everyone. I'm going to talk about how can we be creative in this video. Many of us think that we are not creative and we can not learn creative. But in this video, I'm going to share on how we can develop creativity and practice and start doing things which are creative in nature. So in this video, I'm going to share three aspects. One is ability, attitude, and process. Ability is to imagine or to invent something new. It's not the ability to create something out of nothing. Creativity is not about creating out of nothing. It is to generate new ideas by combining or changing or reapplying existing ideas. So that is the ability I'm talking about here. Some creative ideas could be really big, which can change the world, change the human life. Certain um, creativities could be very simple, but still practical. So believe it or not, everyone has got substantial creative ability within ourselves actually. If you look at our brain, we have left brain and right brain. Left brain is mainly for critical thinking and right brain is for creative thinking. Everyone has got these two aspects and it is up to us on what do we use. Many a times we start relying on critical thinking. During our childhood, we are very creative. If you look at your past, during childhood, you would have come up with your own ideas. It could be very simple or impractical, but you come up with a lot of ideas. Whatever you think, you imagine that this could be the solution, and you share it with others without any shy and without any validation. But as we grow, mainly our education system tells us what is right, what is possible. Over a period of time, we start relying on what is possible. So critical thinking is more of an analytical in nature and it's more of a vertical, whereas creative thinking is more of a lateral. Okay, so critical thinking is more of a probability. What is the probability of being right, being the solution correct? Whereas creative thinking is about generating possibilities. You don't think about whether it works or not, but you start imagining and think about the various possibilities of solving the problem. In critical thinking, you start judging. That's when you come to reality. You see whether it practically it is possible or not. Whereas in creative thinking, you suspend the judgment. You don't take any judgment. You generate the possibility. You start diffusing things. And it is creative thinking is more of visual in nature. You start imagining because it doesn't exist in reality, whereas critical thinking is the realities you see every day. So it's more the critical thinking is more attached to reasoning. For everything you have to have, you ask a reason and it has to be valid, right? And it is more of a yes and yes but doesn't. Whereas for creative thinking, it's more of a associating things with what you know, unrelated things you try to relate. So that's how you generate new ideas and new possibilities. Coming to the attitude aspect. So attitude is having a belief or willingness to play with ideas and possibilities. And it is more of a habit of enjoying the good while looking for ways to improve it. And it is to have the attitude within ourselves to accept change and newness. So if we don't have these attitude, it's going to be very difficult for us to be creative. Let me get into few aspects of attitude. First of all, we need to have curiosity. we need to have the curiosity of what, how does it work, and why do you want to know that. So if somebody asks why do you want to know certain things, how it works, you should say that no, since I don't know how it works, that's why I'm trying to understand, I'm going behind. For example, without curiosity you are not going to, because you are going to be satisfied with what solution already works, what is there, you go with the crowd. If you really want to be creative person, the first thing that you need to have the attitude of curiosity. And second is, you need to have the challenging mentality. You cannot satisfied with, you cannot be satisfied with what exists today. You cannot go with the assumptions that it is an unnecessary things. You have to break out, you have to come out from that, and then you need to come often with a new idea, new path, and new solution. For example, if we think of a college, traditionally physical campus is what we think, but nowadays if you see, there are a lot of virtual campus where um, the students are somewhere probably at their house and other places, whereas teacher teaches from other places. So these things would not have been possible if people didn't challenge themselves to come up with newer ways. And third is a belief that most problems can be solved. So you need to have the belief that most of the problems can be solved, because a lot of times people get afraid of facing a problem. So you should have the attitude that any problem can be solved. Okay. And as I mentioned, you need to suspend judgment. More often, when we come up with the new ideas, new funny ideas, or new way of thing which you haven't seen practically in life, immediately people say this won't work. So that's how people kill the idea at the beginning itself. So you should give time for an idea to be conceived and to be developed, and then you should play with it, and then without judging, right? So that is the main thing. So try to use your right brain as much as possible to generate the possibility. Assume that you are generating, so it may or may not work, you don't need to worry about at that point of time. So sometimes, no, in the history, if you see, a lot of times people, when they came up with the eraser at top of the pencil, they thought this is not going to be useful, and people thought that we are encouraging carelessness because you have the eraser attached to the pencil. But if you see, a lot of opposition used to come at the beginning, but now many people or many children have the pencil with the eraser because it's more convenient. It is more accepted now. Similarly, we need to think problems lead to improvements. So problems can not always bad. Okay. So for example, in the history, if you look at the history, people initially used fat from beef and the oils, everything they used from the beef and other stuff for the margarine. But when in the century, if you turn the century, so there was a lot of shortage for beef fat. So that created a lot of scarcity and problem. But that pushed people to think and invent or kind of make use of vegetable fats from various plants, and soya bean, corn, and sunflower oils they used are still used today. So the margarine is healthier and tastes better. If there had not been a problem of shortage of the beef fat, we would not have got the vegetable fats, margarines made out of vegetable fat, and various other things. So always believe that problem lead to improvement. And another interesting aspect, attitude that we need to have is a problem can be a solution. This might look funny, but this, so probably I can give you an example. So people kind of invented the adhesives. So the glues, super glues they invented. And they noticed that if we were not careful, then glue your finger together. You could glue your fingers together. You can't even separate them out. This was a problem, right? So because the problem is a permanent skin bond, and people used later in Vietnam, people used these glues uh, for wounds together. For example, in surgeons started using these glues after the operation to stitch the instead of stitching, they use these super glues to kind of now have the wounds together. So they initially it looked like a problem, but later if you realize the same solution, so the same problem can be became a solution. So similarly, and the 3M, 3M is, no, you have seen a lot of creative products that they have developed. So one thing that they had developed, which is a sticky note. Sticky note today you see many of us use, and they had developed some sticky note which is not that easy. It was not sticking. It just stick for some time. It didn't last long. So this was a problem. But later, if you see, nowadays people use it for post-it notes and uh, because they need it for one day, half day, just for as a reminder. So initially it looked like the problem, but later it was a solution for something else. So we have seen the ability and attitude. So how we all are able, we can be creative. Second is how we should develop the attitudes towards creativity. So next we will get into the process of understanding the methods that we should follow and the techniques that we should follow to develop and practice creativity. Many of us think that creative people identify or innovate things with a single stroke of brilliance. So it's very, very rare. Generally, creative people are hardworking people and they continually to improve ideas and solutions by making gradual alteration and refinements to their work. So it is an iterative process. And the methods. So methods are generally a kind of procedure that we need to understand, right? Where we can practice to be creative. There are few methods that people follow. One is the evolution. So this is a method of incremental improvement. So new ideas stem from other ideas, new solutions from previous ones, new ones slightly improved over the old ones. So today many of the very sophisticated things we enjoy today developed through a long period of constant incrementation. So one example that I want to share here is the history of automobile. So if you see, with each new model and improvements are being made, with every model built upon the collective creativity of previous models, so that over a period of time, improvements in economy, comfort, and durability takes place. Here, creativity lies in a refinement, the step-by-step improvement, rather than something completely new. And one thing that we need to understand here, each problem has been solved and can be solved again in a better way. So we need to really understand this principle. So we need to have this belief that every problem has more than one solution and every problem's solution can be solved again in a better way. Creative thinkers don't stop saying, okay, it is broken, it can't be fixed, or don't fix it. So creative thinkers' philosophy is there is no such thing as insignificant improvement. Even a small improvement is an improvement. It's going to lead. And second one is another method which is called synthesis. So with this method, two or more existing ideas can be combined. Okay. So for example, someone noticed a lot of people on dates were first to dinner and then to the theater. So somebody thought, okay, why can't we combine these two? So that's how we got the dinner theater. So wherein people have the dinner, order the food, and they serve the food while they watch the movie. And another example that many of you would have seen is the audio tape. Audiobooks nowadays are very famous. So previously people have to read, and then we used to have audio tapes. Then people thought, why don't we combine these two so that we have audiobooks, which also helps the blind people, right? And also people can read books or hear books nowadays while driving. So these audio tapes, audio books, when you create, you don't think, you may think that no, it's of particular use, but as people adopt, so you see many use cases. Next is revolution. So revolutions are the brilliant ideas. It's totally completely different actually. So for example, lecturers in colleges, right? So they kind of do make better. How can we make the lives of lecturers better? So why not stop lecturing and have the students teach each other? So it is a revolutionary idea. So instead of lecturers teaching students, somebody thought, why lecturers need to teach? Why can't we have students teach each other? Right? So this is something revolutionary idea people used in the past. Okay. And reapplication. Reapplication is look at something old in a new way, right? So go beyond labels, right? And here in this case, you need to kind of remove your assumptions and expectations, and think that how a particular solution can be reapplied somewhere else. For example, a paper clip can be used as a tiny screwdriver if filed down, right? And paint can be used a kind of glue to prevent screws from loosening in a machinery. So paint is for some other purpose, so it's being applied somewhere else. It's not for, the purpose is not for painting. The purpose is for making the screws not loosening in a machinery. Okay, so changing direction. So this is an interesting thing. Many creative breakthroughs occur when alteration is shifted from one angle to the other angle. So this is called creative insight. A classic example in a, for example, when a highway department trying to keep kids from skateboarding in a concrete lined drainage ditch, the highway department put a fence to keep the kids out. The kids went around it, still they were playing. The department then put a longer fence. The kids cut a hole in it. The department then put a stronger fence. It was cut too. The department then put a threatening sign in the fence. It was ignored. Finally, someone decided to change direction and asked, what really is the problem? It's not that the kids keep getting through the barrier, but they want to skateboard in the ditch. So how can we keep them from skateboarding in the ditch? So it's many times we don't uh, think about it, right? So the solution what they did is, in this particular example, is they removed their desire, by pouring some concrete in the bottom of the ditch to remove the smooth curve. The sharp angle created by the concrete made skateboarding impossible and the activity stopped. So instead of stopping the kids entering the ditch, so the solution here, they thought if they do something for the ditch, so the skating itself is not possible. So now they are not going to cross the highway. Okay. So in this example, the important aspect that we need to remember is the goal is to solve the problem, not to implement a particular solution. Right? So many times we try to implement a solution and keep thinking on the similar lines, but we forgot what is the problem. So now I'm going to share another interesting aspect, which is techniques. So far we have seen the methods. Theoretically, you know, okay, these are the methods, but techniques are the one which you can practice. Okay, so it is something like learning a new skill, right? So what you can do is you can try this technique name is called uses for. So uses for is what are the possible uses for example, what are the possible uses for a brick? So the for example, you do a brick can be used to build a wall, you can build a walk, you can you can boat an anchor, you can use it as a boat anchor, and then you can powder it and make a dye, put it on a white background and make a sign like a red letters, and you can use it as a nutcracker, right? So like this, same brick can be used in various places. So you should think about for for to practice creativity, you take an object and see where and all this can be used for. Okay, so that way you make it open. You don't need to think about the brick can only be used for building, right? So you can, this way you are not limiting, you are generating possibilities. This is one example that I kind of shared with the brick. Similarly you can try with a paper, similarly you can try with a computer, similarly you can try with a mobile. Try to explore how the same cell phone can be used various places, not necessarily as a cell phone, could be used as a paperweight. So only when you start thinking about it, you will try to develop new features for a mobile phone in this example. Okay, so this is a very powerful technique that you can think about it. And second, next technique is improvements to. So improvements to is a counterpart of uses for. Okay, uses for concentrates on using a given item, okay, often unchanged for multiple purposes, whereas the improvements to technique focuses on altering an item to enhance its original given purpose. For example, in my previous example, you saw a brick we used as it is in multiple places. Improvements to is probably you break the brick and see what else can be done. So one example that I can give you is textbook example item is a coffee cup. So what uh, coffee cup, when you think, okay, probably you think as a cup with a mug with a handle, right? But improvements to is probably can have multiple handles, right? So coffee mug with multiple handles. Don't think about what is the use at this point of time. That's where you need to suspend the judgment. Okay, and you can think of anti-spills, anti-skid, and then probably you can think of built-in heater, a coffee cup, wherein you have a small heater inside inbuilt, so that people when they talk, they can have the coffee for a longer duration. They can enjoy, right? And then you can have some decoration things, and you can have some wheels on it, tea bag holder on one side, and then you can have self brewing, self cleaning, right? So there is no boundary to for a coffee cup. So think about improvements to an existing item and how this can be enhanced further. And another example that I can give is several ways to improve books. So you can have a lighter weight book, and you can have a better binding, and you could have a lower cost and clearer type, so it's easily visible, and more color picture, better indexes. So all these are improvements too. But we we can also have more imaginary for the books. So whatever I said so far, it's more of a trivial, but the improvements can also be uh, bigger imaginative improvements. For example, a book that reads themselves, books with three-dimensional pictures, books with multiple reading paths. It's not a one path, it's multiple path. Same book can be read. Books that explain the hard parts. Some books says, okay, these are the tough pages, so it's complex, more theories. And then books can project itself on a wall. So you can think of a lot of improvements too, which is to enhance the feature or function of a particular object or a particular scenario. Third is Third technique is what ifing. What if? So always ask what if. What if this is something else? So bring in, ask question, and kind of um, imagine or ask question. It's more of a questioning. So people might say that no, it sounds dumb, but still you need to ask. For example, what if all cars are owned by government? What if all the cars today, for example, in India, we have all the cars are owned by governments. Nobody, no individual owns a car. What are the benefits if that had been the case? So parking would have been better because you go and stop the car in front of your office. You go to your office, someone else picks up the car, and then he drives. So it is more of a reusable or shared cars, and parking lot size could be reduced because you don't need so many car parking, right? And you might have to do carpooling with strangers. If cars are maintained by government, then it will be in a better shape because they might have better control, right? And if the car breaks down, so you don't need to worry about, right? And you can just simply walk into any place. So like this, you can have a lot of what ifs. What ifs, for example, uh, if human beings can have this, what if a human being can fly? What if a human being can live inside a water? So think about these possibilities, right? So that is what if. And next technique, fourth technique is attribute analysis. Attribute analysis, for, for each and every object has attributes. For example, if you see a car, it has various attributes. It has wheels, it has color, it has metal, it has steering wheel, and so on. Similarly, if you see a person, you describe them with what color of eyes they have, what color of hairs they have, and so on. So in this particular thing, what you should do is you should take out attributes, an object into an attribute, and try to think about an attribute with different attribute. So we saw a particular attribute, right? For example, a car with metal. So what if instead of metal something else is the attribute? So like that, you can take each and every attribute and try to change the attribute alone. One part alone you can change. This is called morphological analysis. So morphological analysis is more of a generating alternative attributes for each attribute. For example, how can you develop a better band-aid? If somebody says better band-aid, if you just blindly think, or if you just straightforward think, try to be creative, you can't. It's difficult. Whereas if you think, what are the attributes of a band-aid? Band-aid generally sticks on, and then it is flesh colored generally, and you have plastic, and it is rectangular in shape. So instead of that, if you split each of these as an attribute, instead of stick on, can we have magnetic? Can we tie on? Can we glue? Can we have a glue on? Can we paint it? Can we have a velcro? Right. So like that, for the stick on attribute, we can explore alternate attributes, alternates. So similarly, it's a flesh colored, we said. So it need not be a flesh color. It could be a transparent color. It could be a black. It could have stripes. It could be red or green. Right. So it could have even a pattern. So even a band-aid could be a flower pattern, colored. Next is plastic. So next attribute of a band-aid generally is a plastic. So we can think of a paper, cloth, metal, even metal. Would you imagine a metal band-aid? But at this point of time, your focus is exploring maximum alternates, right? You should suspend your judgment. And coming to the shape is an attribute. So generally it is a rectangular. Why? Why it has to be rectangle? Why not? It can be a round or square or even octagon, triangular shape. In some places it could be convenient to have a triangle, right? So who knows? So like that, for take an object, take a situation, you kind of split that into attributes, smaller parts, and for each part or attribute, you come up with an alternate. Think of next technique is reversal. So reversal is thinking in opposite direction. So for example, a teacher instructing students. So this is a typical scenario. So what if you reverse students instructing the teacher, a teacher uninstructing students? Generally, we say a teacher instructing students. What if the reversal of that is either student instructs teacher or teacher uninstructing students, students instructing themselves or students instructing each other, teacher instructing himself or herself, student uninstructing. So it's more of a correcting the teacher. So like that, you can think of various reversal methodologies, reversal technique that you can apply to see if you get a really some creative idea. And the next technique is called analogy and metaphor. So compare the unfamiliar or unknown or problematic with something familiar and understandable. So this is the method of analogy, to find a familiar thing or process that seems somewhat like the idea or the problem to be clarified. In creative thinking, analogies are used for their suggestive qualities to see what ideas can break loose, and especially for helping to examine the problem better. Let me give an example. For example, is there a way, can we devise a better way to find your way driving through the fog? Let's assume that the climate is bad and you have a lot of fog and you are not able to see. What is the best way or better way to find a way driving through the fog? So the analogy can be here is, it's like a nearsighted person finding his way around, right? So how does he do that? Feels with his hands and look at the ground and uses glasses and waves a cane, right? And asks direction. So and some of the ideas are like, you could have a radar system, right? And you could also develop a vision enhancing device such as night light amplification, looks at ground, develop a system for car to follow a track on the ground. So this is how you can have a analogy based uh, technique. And the last technique is trigger concepts. Trigger concept is you see a random idea which is not at all related with, and try to relate the unrelated, totally unrelated. For example, how do you improve um, TV program? And trigger concept that you can take is a road. So TV program and road, they are totally not related at all. But you could ask questions to associate. How is TV program is like road, a journey. Danger, t- Road is like general typically a journey, dangerous curves, linear progress. You move forward, and then scenery makes road interesting. So does TV program have a road in it? Is it bumpy, rough, right? So is it leading astray? So what do roads do? They take you somewhere. Does TV program take you somewhere? Could improved programming do this better? More location films, more programs from abroad, programs that take viewership on intellectual journey. So many things that you could combine, try to force, totally unrelated. So you might come up with a really brilliant idea. Okay. So I've come to the end of my um, this small video clip where the where I wanted to leave you away with the information that everyone is creative, everyone can be creative, and creativity can be learned, for which we need ability and attitude, and we need to understand the methods involved, and techniques needs to be practiced to develop the creativity. So I'm sure this video helped you to understand the creativity with the examples that I shared and the techniques that I shared. So I hope that some of you will give a try and practice the techniques that I shared to become creative and find some really cool, innovative, creative ideas in the future. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, YouTube channel, and then share your comments to me. Thank you so much. Have a